We can't hear you, Nafisa, we can't hear you.
Sorry, I was in mute. Hello, everyone. My name is Nafisa. Thank you very much for joining us today. In our today's session, we have a great facilitator who will cover the topic. But first of all, let me just introduce you to ACSRM. ACSRM is African Community for Systematic Review and Meta-Analysis. It has been launched since 2022, and the main vision of the organization or the community, it's a part of Author 8. It's just to lead the global community with atmosphere to support systematic review research in low and middle income countries, and to empower researchers from academia and research institutions, especially early career researchers with knowledge, skills, tools, and resources to successfully conduct systematic review and meta-analysis. Also to support other users of systematic review, other scientists, government agencies, expert panels, or patients or policymakers also with their knowledge, skills needed to critique. So basically, our host or facilitator today will be Professor Alison. Professor Alison is an associate library professor and academic sciences librarian in Albert Cook Medical Library, Macquarie University. She's also support researchers at the College of Health Sciences and beyond that as well in research-related tasks. She's also information retrieval specialist with expertise in literature searching in all disciplines. She provides a methodological expertise on evidence synthesis and contribute to the improvement of evidence synthesis methods through research and capacity building. She's also a researcher and have published in a number of peer-reviewed journals and presented also in various information science forums. She had attended a number of other short courses in research data management, systematic review development, and research grants management. So we are glad of having her hosting today's session. And as I mentioned, welcome you all to our session. You can keep introducing yourself. And for now, the session is yours, Professor Alison. Take the stage. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nafisa. Good afternoon, everyone. I don't know if it's morning in any of your countries. Good morning and good afternoon. Let me share my screen. Okay, first of all, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So my topic today is performing the systematic literature search. Alison and Kinengyere have been introduced, and I work in Macquarie University in Uganda at the Albert Cook Library, College of Health Sciences. So the topic is performing the systematic literature search, and it is one of the preliminary steps into the systematic review process. As you can see, retrieval, which is in color blue, that is where the systematic literature search takes place in the systematic review process. So to begin with, maybe I would like to hear from my colleague from Nasifa. These 300 participants, are they librarians? Are they all librarians? I didn't get this information.
Well, they are from different fields.
Yes, they are different from
other.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. All right, then. So it is recommended that reviewers work with librarians to design comprehensive search strategies for systematic reviews and other review methodologies. And this is, and I say comprehensive because for an evidence synthesis or for a systematic review, we need to have all the literature out there captured so that we have a systematic review that is high quality and is inclusive. We don't leave out literature that is relevant and would inform our review. So the librarian also helps to conduct the searches and also to manage the data. So writing a successful search strategy will take an intimate knowledge of the databases. And it is very, very important that we have access to those databases. I know later on, maybe we will talk about the challenges of accessing the databases, but there is no shortcut. We need to have access to the databases. So I will start with a PRISMA statement. PRISMA means preferred reporting items for systematic reviews and meta-analysis. And it is a statement that has, it's a reporting guide. It's a reporting guideline that help authors, reviewers to transparently report and talk about the who, the how, the what, and the where and the when of evidence. So it contains two main important items, components. And the first one is a PRISMA checklist. The second one is a PRISMA flow diagram. Now, for the PRISMA flow, the PRISMA checklist, it has about 27. It has about 27 reporting items. But for the session, for this session on literature on database searching, we shall concentrate on item number 6 and number 7. Item number 6 is information sources, where all databases that are searched must be specified, and all the searches must be documented, and the date when each source was last searched should be also documented. We'll later on learn that documentation is a very, very important activity in systematic reviews. So the 7th item, which is the search strategy, when we run the searches, we need to present the full search strategies for all the databases, and we also get to learn that each database is unique. So for each database, we must have a different or unique search strategy that applies to that particular database. And other information, including any filters if they are used, and any other limits that may be used during the search, the development of the search strategy. So then the second one is called a PRISMA flow diagram. And for this particular one, for the librarians, we really concentrate on the identification, the first step. If you're seeing the first box on identification, I'm trying to remove this. Records identified from databases, you have to record those, and then registries and websites and all those other information sources must be recorded, documented. And then the second box, still under identification, records removed before screening, and then duplicate records removed. All that is stuff for the librarian to make sure that it is well done. So this particular diagram is going to be published together with a systematic review, with any evidence synthesis. So we need to do it very, very well so that we don't leave out information that is required. And all this is done as per the guidelines, the PRISMA guidelines. So why do we do this? These guidelines really help us to minimize what we call selection bias. There are so many biases in systematic reviews, but for us to minimize the selection bias, we should follow or adhere the guidelines that were put in place to guide the database searching. The searching must be comprehensive, transparent, reproducible. Why should it be comprehensive? Because we don't want to leave out any literature that would inform our review. Why should it be transparent? Because we're looking at the highest quality evidence, and that is systematic reviews, meta-analysis. If you look at the evidence pyramid, you'll find that systematic reviews and meta-analysis are the highest quality evidence reviews there in existence. And why should it be reproducible? It should be reproducible because the systematic review will the reviewers will be required to update the systematic review or the evidence and gap map or whatever other review. And to do that, we need to go back to our search strategy. And we should use it exactly as we used it when we first produced that review. So it should be reproducible and it should be documented. And we must have a plan. And that plan is a search strategy. The search strategy will also be published together with the protocol. A preliminary search strategy can be published with a protocol, but the final review, we must have a search strategy. Actually, search strategies from the various databases and other information sources should be recorded, documented, and published together with the review. So from this, we can tell that available evidence is the raw material for evidence synthesis. So without literature out there, there's nothing to review. So we need evidence. So let's look at the search strategy. As if I'm seeing something written on the screen. Are you people seeing anything with a red pen and green?
Yes, I'm afraid that it's your side.
I don't think so. Well, anyway, let's proceed. Sorry about this.
Let me try.
Yeah, Prof, you can use an eraser to remove it, please.
Eraser. I'm seeing an
I think it's from the participant.
From the participant. Oh dear.
Yeah, I think the writing is coming from the participant, so you can use an eraser to take it off.
I'm trying to see where this eraser is.
Okay.
Sorry, I may have to. Sorry about this. I will not tamper with it. Since you are the host, maybe you can remove it. I don't know. So, and a search strategy is an organized structure of key terms that are used to search a database. That is the simple definition of a search strategy. Now, methodology for planning and creating a multi-database search strategy consists of steps. As I mentioned, each database will have its own unique search strategy, but the search terms may not have to change. It is only the symbols and other combining Boolean operators and other things that will change, but the search terms will remain the same. So we shall look at step by step. Oh, my God. Things are increasing. Who could be doing this?
You can continue. I will try to control it just a moment.
Okay. All right. So the steps are as follows. The first one is to break down the research question into concepts using what we call frameworks. Frameworks, a very good example of frameworks is PICO, but there are other frameworks. There are very many frameworks out there. I have just 5 here to show you, but there are very many out there, and these support the development of a well-formulated research question in various disciplines. For those who are doing research in health and biomedical sciences, PICO would be the right one for you. And PICO stands for population, P is for population, I is for intervention, C is comparator or comparison, and the O stands for outcome. But I'll not concentrate on these ones because the frameworks is just another different session altogether. I can't go into all this, but you just know that there are very many frameworks out there. For those doing systematic reviews in health sciences, you can use SPIDER or you can use SPICE, and they are out there online. You can read about them and you pick that one that is relevant to your discipline. So an example of PICO, I have a topic here, effects of exercise to prevent and manage child and adolescent obesity in sub-Saharan Africa. Let me say that's my topic for my systematic review. And if I am to get out the PICO, my population would be children or adolescents Now, as I'm populating the PICO elements, I'm actually developing now the search terms that I'm going to use to search the various databases. So the population is who is the study population, and according to my topic, it is children and adolescents. And what's the intervention? The intervention is exercise. The comparison is no exercise, or sometimes it's not applicable. Sometimes there's nothing to compare in a topic. Then my outcome would be obesity, and the setting would be sub-Saharan Africa. So that is my PICO. You can also bring in PICO with a small o, where CO with a small o means context. The PICO can be PICO, it can be PICOS, or it can be PICOM, depending on what you want. The PICO can always be changed. The PICOM, for example, ending with M means methodology. If you add S, it means setting, which is sub-Saharan Africa in this case, or it can just be PICO ending with outcome. So the next stage, I think there is a child out there. My God. Translate the search terms into a search string. That would be the next step. And we are still considering my topic. So my first concept would be children, that now I have to bring in synonyms of children. I have adolescents, I have teenagers, and I have child as a medical subject heading. But if you are from a social sciences background, you don't have to use the MESH, the medical term, the medical subject heading child, but the MESH term for health sciences would be child. So those are the synonyms for children and adolescents. My second concept would be now the intervention, which is exercise, and the synonym for exercise is workout. I just picked out a few synonyms, but there may be many out there. Then my third concept would be obesity, and the synonym for obesity would be overweight. And then the fourth concept would be the setting, which is sub-Saharan Africa. So what you're seeing in color brown, I don't know if that is brown or orange, I have tried now to combine the different concepts with their synonyms to create a search strategy. So my search strategy now is children. I searched in the title and abstract, or adolescent. Remember the truncation. So with adolescents, I changed and put a truncation because I want the system to retrieve adolescent, adolescency, and adolescent. So I have truncated it so that it is able to retrieve the adolescent with different endings. And also teenagers, I just truncated teen to bring teens, and teenagers. So wherever you find truncation, that asterisk, it means I have truncated it to bring in different word endings. Whatever is here is what will be retrieved in the database, whichever database you search. So for the last one, he said, and sub-Saharan Africa, or SSA. Sometimes authors use abbreviations. Sometimes authors write sub-Saharan Africa without a hyphen. So for all those variations, you need to include them so that you don't leave out relevant studies that would inform your what? Your review. Remember, we are looking for available evidence. We are looking for available evidence to make sure that we have a high quality systematic review. The next step is to select appropriate database based on your field of study. I have a list of common databases here. I have PubMed for medical and life sciences. I have the Cochrane Library for systematic reviews and clinical trials. I have Scopus and Web of Science, which are multidisciplinary. I have Embase for biomedical and pharmacological information, PsycInfo for psychology and psychiatry. And of course, they are out there, depending on what your institutions have subscribed to. I also have CINAL for nursing and allied health, but there are very many there. We could use academic search premier from EBSCO. We could use Emerald. There are very many databases out there, as we know, and different schools, different universities subscribe to different databases. As long as you have those databases, then you have literature, you have information sources that can be used to search, that can provide information for your review. Then after you have now compiled your search strategy, that one that we saw that was in color brown or orange, then you conduct the search. So conducting the search, you use the database, you select the appropriate syntax for each database. Each database uses unique, different syntax. You have to combine it with parentheses. You must have seen that my different concepts, I was actually putting them in brackets or parentheses. And you have to combine them with Boolean operators. I am not going to talk about this a lot because I know the librarians know what I'm talking about. Truncation, I've already talked about it. And then you apply the search strategy to each selected database. So how do you select the database? You select the database depending on your field of study. For example, people who are doing systematic reviews on information science, on library and information science, the Emerald database is a must. You must include it. People doing biomedical research, PubMed is a must. Actually, PubMed is a master database in most cases. And then we have multidisciplinary ones like Web of Science, like Scopus. All these should be included, searched for literature. And of course, we need to record the search strings and the results. As we will see that later on, I'll show you the PRISMA. I've already shown you the PRISMA flow chart. We need to put the numbers. If you searched Web of Science, for example, how many did you retrieve? If you searched Emerald, how many did you retrieve? If you searched Web of Science, how many did you retrieve? And after you have searched all those, some will be duplicates because some databases like Web of Science is an index. It indexes from the various databases, from journals, different journals. So you may find you have duplicates, and the duplication is one of the very, very important step or activity in a systematic review. So once you have now run the search, when you're running the search.
Sorry, Dr. Alison.
Yes.
I think maybe you pressed the pin just by clicking on annotate, because we're trying to sort it out. It seems like only the presenter who can do that. Maybe you just didn't pay attention to it.
Should I click on, I clicked on annotate?
Yeah. There is like a pen.
Let me, now, when I have just clicked now, I hadn't clicked.
And now check if there is an option of eraser and then try to erase it.
How come? Just a moment, I'm sorry about this, members.
Okay, I'll try. I just saw it.
Optimize reaction captions.
Yeah, Prof, another option is that you could stop sharing your screen. Yeah, you could stop sharing and reshare.
Okay, just a moment. Just a moment. Okay. So I'm trying to share again. Oh. Just a moment. I believe this is okay. Are you able to see?
Yes, we can now. It's better. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So we had reached searching stage where now we conduct the search using the different search techniques such as Boolean operators, truncation, wildcards, and all those. And then we apply the search strategy to each selected database. We record the search strings and the results. It's very important that you document, because whatever you have done, the methodology section must include whatever you have done. How have you searched? When did you search? What search string did you use? What results did you get? All that information is very, very important. So then we can then apply the relevant filters. And these filters are, the main ones that we use are the date of publication. You may want to look at, for example, the effect of exercise on children and adolescents in sub-Saharan Africa during the period. Well, you want to look at research that was published in the last 10 years. So you need to apply that filter. And because you cannot translate, you need to use, you need to select only those studies that were published in English language. Of course, that one also brings in selection bias, because you may find a very good article that was written in French, but because you can't translate, you can't understand French, you leave it out unless you get a translator. So those are the things that you need to consider when you are selecting your eligibility and exclusion and inclusion criteria. Then you need the study type. For example, the randomized controlled trials, you may want to use quasi-experiments, observational studies. The study type, you can also use it. It can be used as a filter. Setting, we have already seen how to use the setting to put in sub-Saharan Africa. And there is a filter already that is out there that you can download from reliable sources. There are filters that have been designed for methodological studies, for geographical studies. For example, if you want sub-Saharan Africa or low and middle income countries or high income countries or Africa, So those ones are already there. You're not going to sit down and start writing all the countries in sub-Saharan African region, because someone has already done it for you. You only need to go online and search for it. And the important thing is to make sure that you get it from a reliable source. So those are the filters. And once you have run the search now, then you need to evaluate your results. The literature search is a fundamental part of an evidence synthesis. Therefore, the search strategy must be of high quality, and it must, of course, if it's of high quality, then it's going to retrieve almost all the relevant information. You need to ensure that, to ensure the quality and to avoid errors, you need to do certain things. First, involve an experienced librarian or information specialist in the review project, and don't involve them at the time of searching, please. You need to involve them from the word go, because as you have seen, the librarian is supposed to know the research question, is supposed to break down the research question into concepts of PICO and other frameworks, is supposed to use those concepts to develop the search terms and to combine those search terms with the search techniques like Boolean operators. So the librarian is supposed to start from the word go. Actually, when you're writing the proposal, if it's a funded project, the librarian should be part of it from the word go, so that there is also, the librarian is also catered for in the entire project. Without the librarian, it is going to be very, very hard for you. And what I would like to say also is that big organizations like the Cochrane collaboration will require that you involve a librarian or an information retrieval expert. Without that, they may have questions with your review, because when you send it for review, they are going to ask you very many questions. Who ran the searches? How is the database? How was it? So when they are searching, when they are evaluating the database, they will start getting things that are not right, because the content experts are not able to run the searches just as the librarians do. They don't have that expertise to run the searches and to develop the search strategy. So you need to involve the librarian. You need to have, and after you have searched, you need to have a second person, preferably a librarian or even a content expert, to take a look at the search strategy. And then you also need to, this is optional, but it is very, very helpful. You need to use the PRISM validation tool. PRISM means peer review of electronic search strategies. And I would like to show you how it looks like. Are you able to see the content? The font is a bit small. Let me make it big. So these are just a few questions. It is called the PRISM 2015 checklist for search strategies. So when you develop your search strategy, you need to consider these questions. At least make sure that most of these questions have been answered. For example, does the search strategy match the research question?
Sorry, we cannot see the questions.
You cannot see the question.
Yeah, we can only see the title PRISM checklist. Thank you.
Okay. I think I need to stop sharing. And then I show you the... Just give me a minute. I should have done this. Okay. All right. Are you able to see the PRISM checklist of such strategies?
Yes, for now. Go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, so there are very many questions. I just wanted to show you how it looks like. But when you develop your search strategy, please have this checklist and make sure that most of the questions here are yes, yes, yes. Does the search strategy match the research question? That's very, very important. It must, because otherwise, if you have different search terms, how are you going to answer the question? Remember, the systematic review is focusing on answering the research question. And maybe what I need to tell you is that unlike the studies, like other research, when you do your research and you have 2, 3, 4, 5 research questions, the systematic review has just one. You must answer one research question. If you have many research questions, like you have sometimes students who are doing PhDs have 3, 4, 5 research questions, they always advise that you pick out just one research question and you answer it in a systematic review. I don't know if you have heard of the Russian doll and the Goldilocks principle. The Russian doll is where you have so many questions nested together in one systematic review, and that's not right. One systematic review, one research question. So are the search concepts clear? Are there too many or too few PICO elements included? Are the search concepts too narrow or too broad? So these are very many questions, and each one this is translation of the search question, Boolean and proximity operators, subject headings, text word searching, etc. So I'm going to stop this and we proceed. But one thing I wanted to make clear is that when you run the search strategy and develop the search, and when you develop the search strategy and run the search, you need to have a librarian, you need to have a second person. Usually they say the search was done in duplicate, meaning it was done by 2 people, and the third person looked through to make sure that there are no errors. And if possible, please use the PRISM checklist. Let me try to go back. Mm-hmm. Okay. So that was the PRISM checklist. Now the last step, maybe not the last, but almost the last step, is document the search process. I have already mentioned this, but for emphasis, you must document it because there is a whole section in the methods section where you have, as a librarian, you have to write that section. And you write, you say, we did ABCD, we used this search strategy, we used Pico, we used Spider or Spice, and we searched these databases. And each database, we picked this number of studies. When we deduplicated them, we remained with 20, and those 20 could meet our inclusion criteria. So we included 20. That information is very, very important. And if you have looked at systematic reviews, try to check the methods section, you'll find that information. So to document, so that you don't forget, you can use a search results table. And this table should include the date when the search was performed, the databases that were searched, and the platform. Sometimes so those databases have platform. For example, you can say I searched the academic search PRISMA from the EBSCO platform, or I searched the social science citation index from the Web of Science platform. So the platform, if applicable, is very important. You need to include it. Then you need to also provide the search string that was used. And of course, the numbers, the results that you picked from each database, from each website, from each registry, depending on where you searched. And then you need to remove duplicates. All the systematic searches I have done, they are always duplicates. So once you remove the duplicates, it even helps with when the next stage of screening, so that you don't have to screen now similar studies. Although some tools also like the AP Reviewer can also help you to remove the duplicates, but we usually remove the duplicates when we send the results to a reference management tool. So a good method section relies on good documentation. I will emphasize this. And I have already talked about the components to include in your search results table when you're documenting the search: the date of search, the database and platform, the date range, gray literature searches, supplementary searches, listservs, etc. And then duplicates have to be removed. I already said this, included and excluded at the title and abstract screening phase, and also at the full text screening phase. Sometimes you find reference management tools like EndNote. If it is a study, one study was picked from, let me say, PubMed, and another one was picked from Web of Science, you may find the indexer just put a small comma or a small full stop. And in the other, for that particular article in Web of Science had a small full stop, which the same article in PubMed did not have. So the system will look at them as two different articles, and yet it's the same study, but it was indexed differently. So that is why also at the screening stage, the duplication is also done to make sure that duplicates have all been removed. Then results from supplementary searches, including forward and backward citation searching and other methods. Sometimes when you run your searches in 3 or 4 databases, and by the way, the Cochrane collaboration recommends 3 or more databases. Please do not search one database and you think you have exhausted the information sources. So after you have searched those scholarly databases, sometimes you also need to consult the authors to directly give you information in case you fail to get it through the database, through database searching. Then you can also do what we call citation matching. how do we do citation matching? You look at your included studies after you have looked at inclusion, exclusion criteria, and you have the studies that you want to include in your review. Then you look at those studies and look at their reference lists. Their reference lists may have literature that you may not have captured during database searching. So that is called citation searching. So there are different ways. In the PRISMA flowchart, you will see identified studies from databases, identified studies from other sources, and those are the different sources that we are talking about. Consulting the authors directly, checking websites like maybe WHO website, like Food and Agriculture Organization websites, and registries, and also citation searching. So I have an example here of a search of the same study that I talked about in the beginning, effects of exercise to prevent and manage child and adolescent obesity in sub-Saharan Africa. And I ran this search in PubMed, in Medline via PubMed, and this is my search results table. So this is the table that the librarian should give, or the information retrieval specialist should give to the content expert to extract that information, to look at the results that were picked, the duplicates that were removed, etc., etc., and the databases that were searched, and when they were searched. So if you look at this table, I have the date when the search was run, and that was today, 30th May, and the topic is that one. And my first concept, remember, the population was children or child or teen or teenagers or teens or adolescents or adolescents. That was my first concept. And I was able to get to over 2.7 million hits just for that. Then the next search was the intervention, which was the exercise or the workout. And I got 379,000+ studies. And when I combined concept 1 and concept 2, I combined it with Boolean operator and, Boolean operator and narrows your search. It increases sensitivity, but also reduces the searches. So search number 3, it reduced from 2.7 and 300,000 to 30,000. Then I brought in the fourth concept, the third concept, which was obesity and overweight. And obesity, as you can see, I have truncated it so that it brings obese and obesity. And then overweight, and it gave me 377,000. And then I combined it with 3, and I got 3,991. And finally, I added the setting, which is sub-Saharan Africa. I picked this search filter from somewhere. I didn't just sit down and write all this. Actually, this one is, it may be also applying for Africa, but I think I picked for sub-Saharan Africa. So I added it, and down here, the table was so long, I don't know if I'll be able to see it. But down here, it shows when I added sub-Saharan Africa to number 5, I got less. I think I ended up with about 300 studies. But those 300 studies are relevant because they will have all the concepts in 1, in 2, in 3, in 4, and in 5. So that is how the literature search is run, and the studies are documented, the date is documented, and the search string is also documented. That is also another example I picked from somewhere, just to show you the database name, Medline, CAB Abstracts, Web of Science, and the platform. I didn't have a platform in mind. That is the platform, and then the date coverage. Also, sometimes it shows like when the university subscribes to Web of Science, for example, they show you literature from maybe 1946 up to current, up to present, and then the date of search is picked, and also the number of results. One thing that this person did not capture was the search string, which is very, very important. I just wanted to show you a different one, made differently, but the search string was left out. So this is how you document your search. And finally, once you have documented the search, you go back to your PRISMA flowchart. I showed you this PRISMA flowchart at the beginning, but it was empty. Now I have filled it. I'm saying records from database searches were 7,946. From PubMed, there were 6,000. Embase, that Central, that LDIS, Wallis, Web of Science, Google Scholar. So after this, I deduplicated. If you're seeing the next, are you able to see? The font is so small.
Yeah, it's a bit small, but
it's a bit small, but the second box, we are not going down. The second box is duplicates excluded. So out of all these, I excluded 156 duplicates. And then the remaining ones went to the next stage, which is screening, as you see on your left. The first one is identification of studies. The next stage is screening. The third one is inclusion. The fourth one is mapping and synthesis of the full text. So you go removing the full text. We have to give reasons why you have excluded some until finally you end up with the studies that you're going to include in your review. And I can see here the number was 124 papers and 107 studies. I don't know what this means. It should be papers or studies. Well, so out of this total up in the first box, after removing duplicates and doing all this, you remained with 124, and that's what was included in the review. So the last step is managing your data. So we have so many sources now. The reference management source, this thing is coming again. The reference managing software, the references manager software, we have EndNote, that's what we use. Actually, we can also use EndNote to screen. There's Mendeley reference manager, there are very many out there. Those are the examples, but we also have systematic review software. And one is called Epi Reviewer. The other one is Review Manager. There is Covidence, there is Ryan, there is Sumari. There are very many, but some of them are for pay. For example, Epi Review, I need to pay for it, and I think it's about, I don't remember, about 70 pounds. Yeah, but Covidence, I want to emphasize Covidence because it is free for developing countries. You need just go to the Covidence website and you register and you're able to use it. And it is very easy to use. But now to use Covidence would be a different session altogether. I'm not going to go into this. And then Ryan is open source. Sumari is not free, but you can get it from the Joanna Briggs Institute. I think you also need to pay for it, but it's not very expensive. I think the most expensive is Epi Reviewer. I'm seeing people coming when I am finishing. Admit. So that is how you can manage your data. So I have just given you a few examples of the reference of the tools. But one thing I also want to mention here is that there is a lot of artificial intelligence tools now. They are where you can use machine learning, for example, to do screening. You can use machine learning to do data extraction. All these are new things that are coming up. So with systematic reviews, you have to continue learning each and every day, you know? So you need to continue learning to know how, for example, instead of generating that strategy, maybe you can find a way of using artificial intelligence to capture. But one thing about artificial intelligence, I must warn you, is that you need to also go in as a human being and you cross-check to make sure that what comes out is what you want. You can use your artificial intelligence, but you need to go there and revise and edit here and there so that what you pick is what is needed. Okay. I come to the end of my session. I thank you very much. I don't know how much time I have used. Maybe I'm still within the time that was given, but thank you very much. This is all I was able to share with you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Alison. It was a really beneficial, insightful session. I personally get a lot. I hope the participants as well. So now we came to our Q&A part. So if you have any question, you can raise your hand. But in the meantime, I will just sort some questions in the chat. The first question was, if I have a population and a problem, which Boolean I have to use, and or are? I already responded, but you can still give more explanation.
Okay, thank you. I don't know who asked that question. Anyway, a population and a problem and a patient is actually, it's the same, you know? PICO, I said that P stands for population, but sometimes it may stand for patient or it may stand for problem. But when you say which, did you say which what? Which Boolean operator?
Yes, which Boolean operator he can use for if he has population and problem, and he has two operators, which one of them and or?
Okay, so let me say that the problem is what? I would really need example, because if I say population, the population may be child or maybe pregnant women or the people, you mean the people, but then the problem, let me say the population is pregnant women and or gravid or whatever, and then the problem is preeclampsia, that bleeding after birth. If it is that, I cannot combine the problem together with the population using O, because I am looking at only those pregnant women who have preeclampsia problem. It's not that every pregnant woman gets that condition, or every woman that has given birth gets that problem. Some do it, some don't. So I'll be looking for those women who get that condition. So I'm going to use Boolean operator and for me to be able to pick on pregnant women who got that problem of preeclampsia. So I would say pregnant women or gravid or nursing mothers and preeclampsia. So it depends. You can use Boolean operator and to combine both, because they are two different, I should say they are two different concepts.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, I think that's the question that's the answer, much the question. The second question is, someone he is mentioning that in their university, they don't have librarian. So if they don't have, should they go ahead and just conduct a systematic review?
Okay. I have, well, I have not heard of a university that doesn't have a librarian, but if you don't have, you can actually get someone who is a content expert, like one of the maybe principal investigators, main reviewers, get somewhere and learn how to run these searches. You do not have to be a librarian. The Cochrane collaboration says it should be a librarian or a search expert. So if you are a search expert, if you learn these things and know how to run the searches yourself, you actually don't need a librarian. But to me, I look at it as something that is going to add a lot of work for you. Already you have to do screening, you have to do data extraction, and now you have to develop the search strategy, you have to run the searches, you have to manage the data, but it shouldn't stop you from doing the systematic review. You can do it yourself if you can manage. Alternatively, you can outsource. You can hire someone from Makerere University Library, for example, to run the searches for you, of course, at a cost. Yes.
Yes, thank you. The next question is, it's about the inclusion and exclusion criteria. Should they be included at the same time when they're designing the study?
Yes, so inclusion and exclusion criteria, actually the general name for that too is eligibility criteria. So eligibility criteria is, you need to look at the studies that have been, actually you do it before you run the searches even. When you are designing your research question, before you do the protocol, you need to look at which studies do I want? What should I include? For example, if I want to look at, let me say child obesity, okay, obesity in children in low and middle income countries. And I'm going to run the search, and I get a very, very good study, but the setting is high income country. That one already excludes it. Even if it's very relevant, it looks very relevant, but it's outside your scope. So that one goes into exclusion. You exclude it. Then you say, okay, I want to look at studies that were performed between 2000 and 2024. So you may have all those studies that were published during that period are going to be included. As long as they are relevant, they are addressing that question, they are going to be included. So you have to determine your inclusion and exclusion criteria at the beginning when you're reviewing, when you're developing and formulating your research question. So that when you start searching, you know which ones to include, which filters to include. For example, if you want for the past 10 years, when you're running the search, you must put that. Only studies you must limit to only that period. If, for example, you want only RCTs or clinical trials, you may have to run the search, the general search, then at the end you say, but here, I want only clinical trials. So when you add that one, it will exclude the rest and leave only clinical trials. So that is how you do the
Okay, we will take a question from the YouTube. So the first question is it in all situations that a comparison will not be a concept in the search strategy? Prof. Alison, are you here? Can you hear me? I've read that I cannot see. Oh, Prof. Alison, can you hear me? You are muted. Okay.
All right. Sorry, I was muted.
No problem.
If you limit the time frame, how will you justify the older literature? That is from Eric Okari. I don't know whether I should answer this or whether...
You can go ahead since you picked it. Next question, I will get it from the YouTube. No problem.
Okay. I'm trying to see it again. Okay. That if you limit the time frame, how will you justify the older literature? It depends on what literature you're interested in. For example, if you want to look at the history of HIV in Uganda, there is no way we are going to avoid the old literature because, for example, HIV in Uganda started in around 1985. So that literature in Uganda in 1995-85 must be included. But if you want to look at present evidence, maybe recent evidence, then you can also. By the way, what I did not mention is that when you set the limits for the dates, you must give a justification why you are changing, why you want to focus on this date, this date range. You must give a justification. So in my case, I would say I will use the old literature because that's the time when HIV and AIDS started in Uganda, was identified in Uganda. So for you, if you say I want to do the past 10 years, you need to give a justification, and this justification should be scientific. We have to get a reason why you are selecting that. And you can also, and this one also applies on maybe the setting. The setting, you can say, for example, I want to just look at low and middle income countries because that is a place where HIV and AIDS maybe has killed so many people and, it is not well managed. You need to get a scientific reason, and all that should be included in your systematic review and in your protocol for starters. Okay. I
Okay.
hope that is answered. Okay, continue.
Okay, great. The next question from YouTube is about comparison. Is it in all situations that comparison will not be a concept in the search strategy?
The comparison can be important and sometimes it's not applicable. For example, if you want to look at the comparison usually comes in maybe, should I say, systematic reviews in the medical sciences. For example, if you want to look at maybe how drugs, what should I say, the effectiveness of drugs, you can just get the control group and the other group, and you give this group what we call the actual Panadol, let me say if it's Panadol, and then the other group you give them what they call a placebo. It's like a fake Panadol. The patients will not see whether this is Panadol or not. They will think that it's actually the actual Panadol. So you'll be comparing both groups. In that case, the comparison is very, very important. You must include it. But in some cases, you don't have anything to compare. I don't know if I have medical scientists around who can also add on this, but that's how it is.
I think we have many fields around, so well, thank you. Let's go to the next question. I think it's mainly about search process in Scopus. How can we reduce commands in Scopus and Web of Science databases?
Can you repeat that? How can we?
Yes. How can they reduce commands in Scopus and Web of Science databases?
Commas?
Yeah.
How can they reduce? Did you say how can you reduce commas?
Yes. Commands in Scopus and Web of Science.
I don't see, I've been running the Web of Science database and I don't use commas. I don't use commas.
Maybe they mean Booleans or something like that, maybe. Operators.
The what? Let me look at that question. Where is it?
Sorry, it's in the YouTube.
From YouTube.
Yeah, it's from the YouTube.
I actually haven't understood the question, but I've been using the Web of Science. I've used the Scopus before. I've been using the Web of Science in most of the systematic reviews that I have been involved in, and I don't use commas. I use brackets, the parentheses, which is okay. I use equal signs because that is the requirement. Usually when you go to a database, before you start searching, look at the first page and you see which symbols this database uses. It's very, very important that you know that information before you start running the searches so that you use those symbols in that particular database. But I've not seen commas, I've seen brackets and equal signs and, all this. Maybe when you're separating the title, comma, abstract, comma, keyword, there it is their symbol. The comma is a symbol that you have to use to separate. If you want to search in title and you want to search in abstract and you want to search a word as a text word, those ones, yes, they are separated by commas and there is no way you can change that because that is their, that's what they use to search that database.
All right, thank you. This is just for the participant. You will find in the chat a feedback form. We would love to have your feedback so we can improve our webinars. And also we will have question box form. If we cannot cover all questions in this session, you can just write your question. We will cover it later in another session. So for now, we will also move to another question from YouTube. And the question is, how can we capture the search terms like SSA, which is in capital, especially when it showed that the number retrieved is few? Can we do in this situation? Should I repeat it again?
Yes, please.
Okay. How can we capture the search term like he wrote the search term in capital, which is double SA, especially when it showed that the number retrieved is few? Can we do it? Can they do it in this situation or not?
Okay, the question is actually not very clear, but maybe what I can say, when we are searching, let me say we are searching for sub-Saharan Africa, we are supposed to write the word Sub-Saharan Africa in full and also SSA. And why do we do this? And also Sub-Saharan Africa with a hyphen. There are three different things. And why do we do this? Because authors write differently. One author may use Sub-Saharan Africa in abbreviation like SSA. And for me, I'm interested in capturing all that literature that is relevant to my systematic review. So whether the one author wrote SSA and another one wrote Sub-Saharan Africa with a hyphen and another one wrote Sub-Saharan Africa without a hyphen, I want all that literature. That's why I combine all those with Boolean operator or, so that I don't leave out relevant literature just because the author used SSA. I don't know if I have answered the question, though. It's not very clear.
Hopefully. Hopefully, no problem. I will take a question from the Zoom. In the chat here, someone named JM, I think he's a student. He's asking if someone wanted to do literature search as a student preparing for dissertation, he wants advice how such a dissertation student can make best use of systematic reviews.
Okay. Now, what I could say, a dissertation is primary research. A systematic review is secondary research, and systematic reviews and other evidence synthesis methodologies are meant to inform policy and practice and also to identify gaps in research. But for a dissertation, this student is not going to really use. You can use a systematic review, but I think it is better to use to collect your data and write about your data. And also it depends. If your data is, for example, looking at literature, you could include systematic reviews, but one thing different from the thesis is that doing primary research or a dissertation, you can go find your literature wherever you want to find it. Nobody is going to ask you how many databases you searched. Nobody is going to ask you what results you got there. Nobody is going to ask you which date you ran those searches. So really, you can use these skills of Boolean operators and truncation and parenthesis to make sure that you get good literature to inform your introduction maybe, but the rest of the dissertation, you're going to use your data that you collected from, from somewhere. So I don't know, you can still use that search, but it's not going to be as rigorous as for a systematic review because you don't document it. That is what I can say.
All right, the next question is, I'm not sure if I pronounced the name well. Adilusi, he said that I would like to ask if can use the same search strategy for all search engines. For example, the way you combined your keywords and truncated them while you search a PubMed engine, can that work for other search engines? It seems like the same search terms, he can use it also in PubMed, other in Webs of Science, etc.
Okay, that is a good question. At the beginning, I indicated that each database has unique symbols that they use. So if I develop my search terms and I'm going to apply them in PubMed, I have to put, for example, I have to use title abstract TIAB in PubMed. But if I put TIAB, meaning title and abstract, if I put that in Web of Science, it will give me 0 results, so it will not give me the right results. So the terms are not going to change for all the databases, but the way you combine them is going to change for each database. So you find that the search terms have not actually been tampered with, but the way you have presented them in the search strategy is what is going to change, because each database has unique symbols that they use. Okay.
Okay, next question is about PRISMA. What is the significance of PRISMA in conducting systematic review?
Okay. So Prospero, one thing I want to also tell you is that there are so many sessions that we can have in systematic reviews. This one is just database searching, but there are very many out there. And one of them is called protocol development and registration. So Prospero is a registry, an online registry, where you can publish your title. So for all systematic reviews, for you to be given go ahead to do a systematic review, you must register the title and you must register the protocol. So when you register the when you register the title, you can register it in Prospero, you can register it in the Open Science Framework. There are so many other registries out there. But when you register it, then you stop other people from doing it, because once you register it, it's online. Everyone is seeing it and nobody is going to do your topic before you finish it. Remember, a systematic review can take a year to finish, 6 months, 4 months to finish. Meaning, if you don't put out your topic and say, I am already working on this topic, someone who is faster will come and do it for you. Do it. By the time you go to publish, people will tell you, no, but this one is already published. So Prospero helps you to publish your title and also the protocol, so that you don't deviate from the proposal. How you wanted to do it in the protocol is how you should do it when you are doing the systematic review, the full review. So it helps you in 2 things. 1, to go by your protocol, you don't deviate. And secondly, to publicize your title, so that the topic, so that nobody does it before you do it. That's what I can say.
All right, thank you. I also advise participants who just are new in systematic review. We have multiple recordings in YouTube. You can check them. We have previous sessions as well. I also shared in the chat. We have a video on developing and registering a systematic review protocol. You can also go ahead on it. Some people who are asking about the slides and recording, it will be shared in your email that you used for registration, so don't worry about it. And also encourage participants to collaborate. So if you would like to speak, ask your question, you can just raise your hand. And I will continue checking on the questions in the chat. Just a moment. I think this question already has been answered, because Abdullah is asking about which applications that he can use for the data extraction. And you already mentioned that. And also someone else is asking that what are some AI tools that can be used for systematic reviews?
Okay. So AP Reviewer, all those software programs that I have shown in the last slide, Summary, AP Reviewer, Covidence, Ryan, they can all help you in the screening and in data extraction. But also, you can, the rudimentary way is actually to use an Excel sheet. But of course, that one is going to take you forever. If people who have used Access, you can use that. But EndNote can also help you to extract data. If you go into the EndNote, if you log into EndNote, or if you open an EndNote library with your studies, you can first create what we call groups. Then you can call one group included and one group excluded. So that is like on your left-hand side of the EndNote library, you have 2 folders, one of included and one of excluded. So you go looking through the list of the studies that you sent to EndNote. If this one is really very relevant, you just throw it in the included folder. If it is not relevant, you throw it in the excluded folder. So you go doing that until you finish all the studies. So EndNote can also help you to do data extraction. That is screening, actually. Now for data extraction, you need a data extraction table. The data extraction table, you may have to fill it physically, manually. I don't have an example of a data extraction table, but for each study that you're going to include, you need the title of that study. you need the authors of that study. That's what we call metadata on that study. And when you finish, you put in columns depending on what you want to capture. What kind of data do you want to capture from this study? Do you want to look at women who had who bled after birth, for example, after delivery? So if there is a study on women who did not bleed after delivery, you don't. But if there is a woman who bled after delivery, and how many days did he bleed after delivery? Did she bleed after delivery? If there are 5 and you have a column for the length of the bleeding, then you get 5 and put it in that column. Then, did this woman die? Or she didn't die. If she didn't die, you put it in there. Yes or no. Some of the columns are yes or no, and others actually pick the data, the actual data that you need to pick from that study. But the actual data depends on your inclusion and exclusion criteria.
All right, thank you. I think because we have limited time, I will just ask the last question from YouTube. I think the person who already asked about the commands, he clarified his questions. He meant Boolean operators.
He meant Boolean operators.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that's good now. If I can say something about Boolean operators, if you're looking at concepts and their synonyms, for example, children or adolescents or teenagers, you see all those refer to the same population, the same person, isn't it? You need children, or where the author used the word children, or where the author used adolescents, or where the author used teenagers. Those are the same, I call them synonyms because they are related terms, but it's one concept of the population. For the same concept, the same terms in the concept, you use Boolean operator or. Now, when you're going to add a different concept, like now a different concept would be exercise. A different concept would be exercise or workout. So when you are adding to another concept, you use Boolean operator and. So that's how you use them. So the Boolean operator and is going to be used between concepts, whereas the Boolean operator or is going to be used between synonyms. I hope that's clear.
Yes, it's clear. Thank you. So the last question will be, I think, Dr. Alison, you mentioned that you used a tool to filter out countries in sub-Saharan Africa without having to type all those brackets words. What's the tool that you
use? Thank you. Actually, it's not a tool, but they are websites. There are websites. I think one of them is, I did not put them in the slides, but if you actually went to Google and say, I want a search filter for sub-Saharan Africa, if you do it in Google, it is going to give you different sources. You are going to look at those sources that are, what should I say, authenticated, like this one. If, for example, it's from Cornell University, then you know that one is what? Is peer-reviewed and it is valid. You can pick that filter and paste it in your search strategy. There is no tool, but you need, the filters are out there. There are links. If you want, before I share these slides, I can just go and put a slide for those tools for you, and then I share the slides after. That will be helpful because you just use those links to take you to the tools. I mean, to take you to the website where you find search filters, either for countries, search filters for study methodologies, search filter for even different groups. You find search filter for minority groups. You find search filter for, different categories of people.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Alison. So unfortunately, we came up to the end of the session. And I will just repeat myself again. For those people who would like to follow our social media websites, you can just check in the session. You can find that. And we would love really to listen from you. If you could just give us feedback, we also share that in the group. The more questions, we will also sort them. You can also type your question in the question book form. We urge to share it. And we have few announcements for the people who already registered for tomorrow's session. We would love to apologize that tomorrow's session will be postponed because unfortunately the facilitator's mom has been passed away today. He will not be able, so we really feel sad about it. So we will reschedule it for 2 weeks from now. The new date will be communicated, and participant also, until you can also share the link with your colleagues if you haven't registered yet, or you also, if you haven't registered, you can find also the link in the chat. And also some people or some participants who have technical issues, we will respond to you soon, or you have to some questions or supposed to take the quizzes. We will also sort that. Just keep your eye on your email and check your spam or your junk too. And yeah, that's I think that's all. And if you would love also to join our community, you can have access to our social media. As I mentioned, we also have mentors, librarians like Dr. Alison. You will get a lot of benefits from her. If you would like to contact on anything. Recorded session as well as the slides will be shared after this session. And that's it for today. Thank you very much. And if you can just give us a minute of your time and open your camera, we would love just to take a screenshot. And we would love to take a photo to share it in our. Oh, it seems ready. Okay, let me just try to. I will just count from 3 to 1, and then I will start. 3, 2, 1. I will take the first shot. You can smile, you can make any movement if you want. Okay, I'm gonna take the second one. Second one down. Sorry for the background noise. I'm taking the third one. I'll take the last one. Smile. Nice smile. Thank you very much all. And we would love to see you after 2 weeks. Thank you very much. Goodbye. I have a good one.
Hi, thank you everyone.
Goodbye. Thank you very much, Dr. Alison.